Hello and welcome to the Securosis Firestarter. I'm Rich Mogul. This is November 2nd, 2015, the day after the weekend of Halloween. So joining me as usual are Mike and Adrian. Mike, say hi.
Hi.
Adrian, say hi.
Hey, Rich.
Okay, we're done. See you. No. You guys good? Well, Adrian, you don't have kids. Mike, how is the candy?
My kids are old enough now where I really don't have to deal with it anymore. It was a matter of dropping them off at whatever party they were going to, and I didn't even have to collect them later on. They find their way home, and or they have sleepovers or whatever it is that they do, and I mop up on Sunday morning of this year, right? But I mop up the day after, and it's really just more about making sure they don't get into the candy too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I realize we have a very short amount of time to trick or treat with our kids, so I'll do my best to enjoy it. But we luck out; the in-laws come over, so Sharon and I can both go out with the kids and do the full trick or treating while they hand out candy at our house. And now I still gotta go out clean up a couple of fog machines because maybe I overdo things a little bit at our place. So it's good.
I,
And
you know, you
cool.
know who I was this weekend? I was the guy because I totally forgot to get candy because I don't have to deal with that, right? So I was the guy that opened the door and said, "Oh crap, I don't have any candy. Sorry," and just to see the look on all the kids' faces. Oh, it was it was the
What an
deflation
ass!
machine.
Don't you turn off your lights,
I
man?
was that guy. I was expecting somebody else to come visit, and it wasn't that person. It was a group of kids,
Okay,
and
you tell that person to send you a text message when they're at the door and you keep all the lights
I did
shut
that
off.
the next time. I did that.
Okay, so I felt so guilty. Our friends were having a party and they were doing up. It's a big like Arkham Asylum, like did up the whole, built a bunch of stuff and everything else at their place. I'm like, all right, I'll loan you my fog machine. And then I felt so guilty I wasn't gonna have a fog machine for the kids in my neighborhood. I drove out, 30 minutes to Guitar Center and bought a new one. So, but we had a ton extra candy because my father-in-law was handing it out and he's stingy as shit. Some kid comes up and it's like, "Can I see what kind of candy you have?" And he goes, "No, you'll take what I give you and like it." So it's
I
good.
promise there's no razor blades in the apples. I
Yeah.
promise.
Yeah. All right, guys. So speaking of Halloween horrors, we had some interesting news come up last week, or I think it was last week. It seems that so we all know, or many of you know, that there was an issue with Symantec and root certificates. So Symantec's a certificate authority. It's built into all the browsers and everything else. It's been there for a long time since when was that acquisition, Mike?
Of VeriSign's consumer stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
Years.
4 or 5 years ago, maybe more.
Maybe more, I think.
Seven.
And so they got nailed because they were running an internal test, and there were some root certificates that, or they generated basically some false Google certificates and stuff. Google has certificate pinning in Chrome. Now, I may make fun a lot of Google for two things. One, privacy, obviously, and number two would
They're evil.
be Android. Yeah, I don't even care if they're evil or not.
No,
Yeah,
okay.
everyone's evil. I mean, we work in the freaking security industry, man. There's, there's no innocence here.
Actually, we're the most innocent of them, but
Yeah.
it's the business people that are really the problem.
This is true. So they, so aside from the privacy and aside from Android being a shit show, explicit tag editors, then but they're usually pretty good about this stuff. And so in Chrome, there's a feature where they actually ship Chrome with Google's own certificates embedded in there, and every software update will update whatever Chrome certificates there are, which means that those are separate from anything that's signed by a certificate authority. And so Chrome will check that anytime you go to a Google property, that the certificate that's presented matches the one that it has stored internally. It's called certificate pinning. That means if somebody fakes a Google certificate and signs it, even with any root authority, it's not going to match the official Google ones that Google wants people to be using. And that's set up to trigger alerts. So they use this all over the world to track when there's interception going on. And that's how they found out Symantec did was playing some games because those should not have gotten out there. Well, next, and Symantec, we kept all this internal. It didn't go out anywhere. We'll do an audit. Google's found like 1,000 more cases or something ridiculous like that of improperly generated certificates from Symantec. It turns out Symantec's internal audits were not accurate based on the outside research that Google can do. And it's kind of a worst case scenario for Symantec because Google has the ability to do this auditing themselves from
That's
the
right.
outside. as opposed to Symantec saying, "Oh no, we checked everything and it's all okay." No, it turns out their internal controls look like they are absolute crap on their certificate authority, that's a huge issue. This is not
only
them.
if you need to trust the certificates, Rich.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the only time this would actually come into play.
This isn't like throwing certs in a Blue Coat proxy, like corporate signed root certs where you make changes to the endpoint. This is their actual root certs being used improperly.
Yeah, no, this is how, things like Windows Update get busted.
Yeah.
Right? You remember that? This is how that kind of thing. You go, how could that happen? This is how that happens, right? Because you're able to, if you've got a root cert that's actually in the browser, you have the ability to basically build and issue fake certificates with other trusted browsers and just cross-sign them. So, yeah, it's pretty much a fiasco.
Yep. And no alerts, no warnings. And so, we were talking beforehand. Obviously, we spend many hours preparing for these fire starters.
If by many hours you mean 10 minutes, yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah, 10 minutes. Thanks for covering. It wasn't that long. So, we spent all this time preparing. But, what came up in our discussion was, we've all, the three of us collectively, been working in this industry for a long time. And House of Cards doesn't even begin to describe what happens when you actually start looking at the internal controls of security companies. So I'm going to kick it out there to you guys, particularly because both of you work more on the vendor side than I have, which means at all. And I mean, even just the stuff as an analyst I've seen, it's just security vendors can be absolutely horrible about how they actually have their internal controls and not just building security into their products, but their own infrastructure.
Well, it really happens in two waves, right? So the first wave is, obviously the building security into their products, and we've always been poor at that. There were, any number of different black hat presentations 5-6 years ago about somebody, kind of running a scanner or a fuzzer against a security product and having the thing blow up 50 ways from Sunday and all that stuff. So there's been a long history of apathy on the part of security vendors, and it's just like, well, do as I say, not as I do, and then they do the analysis that says relative to what your traditional endpoint protection platform will stop, you actually have a negative impact on your security posture when you deploy those agents because of the attack surface that is increased because of the crappy code that they represent. But, they fixed that and all that kind of stuff. And obviously product is product and agent is agent, and, folks are trying to, go with much thinner agents and actually maybe pay attention to that. But that's not even really where the main issue is as we move forward. So this issue with Symantec is an internal controls thing on a managed service, right? Now that it's SaaS everything, right, or SecAS as everything, however you want to term it, internal controls is what it's all about, right? And it's funny because when I was at any number of different vendors, we were all on the IPO path, and at one point, and Adrian, you probably experienced this too, at one point you have lawyers that start talking to you about bright lines and things that you can't do, and a bulked up accounting group because they have to start preparing for things like Sarbanes-Oxley. Remember all that kind of stuff, and that really shined the light on the fact that most smaller companies have no idea what an internal control really is. And now you start thinking about having to protect stuff that's actually kind of important and can be used and exploited, truly maliciously, because these are trusted parts of our communications and our internet infrastructure. And internal controls take on a whole new meaning, but I don't think we've made a lot of progress in terms of actually having those locked down. So yeah, I mean, this is a micro issue, and it's obviously high profile because Google clearly couldn't come to an agreement with these guys to the point where they wouldn't go out and publicize it. That just means, all right, that's obviously a 4-alarm blast. There's probably another, 400 or 500 forest fires burning somewhere that we don't even know about until, basically your house is on fire.
So did Google just do an ethical disclosure? Is that basically what they did? They just put it out there in the community? Yeah. I mean, this is actually a really big deal from my perspective, because you remember we've actually gone through these. We've actually done a review of a certificate authority, both their code and their infrastructure and all of this and their processes, and the amount of time and money that they put into this stuff to get it right, to revamp it. It's incredible, and then an entire industry, Symantec and GoDaddy and and Global Sign, their revenues are going up. The use of certificates and the demand for certificates is going up, and they're making a lot of money. And so for the leader in that segment to completely blow it like this, that's really, really bad news, because they could very quickly go second or third place market, because they're one of the ones that are considered as a trusted authority for certificates.
Do people even pay attention anymore? I mean, I guess that's kind of my fear. And this, again, this micro example of just certificates. Do you just renew the thing? I mean, crap. I mean, how many times do we talk to people and they've complained because their GoDaddy certificate kind of just expired, and you're like, what? And red alarms go off in your head, and they're like, what's the problem? It's like,
That's
so.
GoDaddy.
Well, there are a couple of things that are interesting, and specifically around SSL, and you'll see my eyeballs flickering as I'm trying to pull it up. A couple of the reference things here, but the first is there's been a lot of discussion about use of SSL libraries. I think people have cared about that, particularly because since Harpleaf came out, we've seen some switches, on different platforms, different focuses, and Amazon released theirs as well. So that's kind of interesting. There is updates on Cipher suites because a lot of this is getting tied to the privacy and the Snowden stuff as well. And that's becoming pretty interesting. You've got and I can't remember their name, but they're building basically a free trusted certificate authority, which we've never had. So you'll be able to actually get free SSL certs without having to go through some kind of a scammy thing. And they're going through the process of becoming a root certificate authority. It's free encryption, somebody please put it in the comments if you actually listen to this darn show and list it out there for us. And then the other one is Apple, as part of their big privacy campaign, is basically pushing everybody to app transport security, HSTS, which means that not just SSL, but best practices for SSL will be enforced at the operating system level as things connect, and you build that into your apps, and that's supported at a fundamental layer within the operating system. Again, because of all the various SSL things. And look, SSL is a mess. There's just all these issues around it. But if you start building, looking at these initiatives, there's enough of these things out there that, maybe the average person doesn't care, maybe the average business or website doesn't care. But I certainly think we're seeing a pretty big resurgence in the attention that's being paid to SSL, its role in society, certificate authorities, and at least within the tech industry, beyond even the security industry. Now, that's, by the way, separate from the fact that many of the services and products that we look at in the security industry they don't eat their own dog food worth a damn. Maybe they use their own product, but if anything, in many cases, that reduces their security. So, we've seen, Mike, you were talking.
But trust us, we're here to help. We're here to help.
We've seen multiple compromises of anything agent-based. They just take over the command and control system, and you just, you have your own botnet basically, just by taking over.
Or anything that gets downloaded. Folks will download an app. They'll do, folks will just, they'll send out malicious versions of these things that just have pretty easy wrappers that anybody that's doing any kind of static test would be able to find pretty quickly, but nobody's doing a real static test in any of these app stores or download sites, and that's what happens.
Yeah, really what it comes down to is it costs money. To do security well is not free. It's not even close to free. From developing secure applications to building a secure infrastructure, particularly when you are a service provider, and having good internal controls and processes, there's a cost to that, and it's not easy. And it's just you have to build that stuff in early. It's nearly impossible to bake either one of those processes in after the fact. And we see places where it's done right. The cloud providers, some of the ones I've been big talking about this because I've looked at some of the controls that, not a lot of them, not nearly all of them, but some of those major ones, the guys with the real big data center experience, they kind of know their stuff, and that stuff's locked down, and they've got those tight controls and dual authority and MFA everywhere and segregation of duties and all of that. And I'd say even among security vendors, it's only a very limited percentage that have that. When they do have it, it's even a smaller percentage that applies it consistently across all their products and services.
Fiasco ahead. We've seen the movie. We know how it ends. We're not exactly sure what goes up in flames first, but we're pretty sure something's going up in flames.
Yeah.
So get your marshmallows, baby. Get your marshmallows.
Is that the title of this post? I was going to be
I
like,
think so.
I was going to call it Internal Control Shit Show, but yeah, I guess we'll go
Get
with
your marshmallows. Get the
Get your
marshmallows.
marshmallows.
That's it. All right. We basically just blabbed on
Drop
and
the
said
mic.
other than things
Drop the
suck.
mic.
Yeah. Mic drop. We got no answers. The
There's
stuff's
no
expensive and
answers.
hard.
The only answer is to be aware of it, right? And
Yeah.
and I think that's what we all do, and everybody should be pen testing their environment, and everything's fair game, right? So I think the reality is if there are weak links, and if your security products and or services are the weakest link, then you need to find that, and then you need to challenge your vendors to do better. And we're starting to see that in some pockets, especially around healthcare and product security. We are starting to see some activity along those lines. But again, the impetus is on us as practitioners to force our vendors to do better. And if they can't, then you have to vote with your wallet, or else don't bitch because of the fact that you get popped because of some crap software that you have in place.
Yeah, we talked about the whole Oracle thing, and then when Marianne Davidson's blog post that got pulled down about don't you dare pen test our products or code assess our products. And the truth is a lot of the things that I know the researchers that some of the things they discover that show up at Black Hat and DEF CON talks when they go after security products, it's because they found it on a pen test. Include that stuff in scope, test it, report it, but I mean most definitely that's as much of a potential weakness as anything else. All right. Let's drop the mic. Everybody's got other stuff to do. We got work to do. Thank you guys for joining us. Thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you again within the next couple of weeks, if not sooner. Okay.